News coming out of Columbus as the spring practice is underway for the Buckeyes. That quarterback battle, it's one of the biggest things, the biggest storylines in the offseason. And now you throw this into the mix. Joe Burrows, a kid that, if he wanted to, could graduate and transfer. How does that play into the mix at quarterback for Ohio State?
Well, I mean, I think it's a luxury for Urban Meyer to have this kind of problem. You got a guy like Joe Burrow who can step in there and play. Obviously, you got Dwayne Haskins Jr., you got Tate Martell. Those are your top three quarterbacks. So that's, to me, is a luxury. But I know, Urban Meyer's talking about not being enough separation between those three guys and it really being hard. But I think a lot of that is also coach talk, because you don't want to designate a starting quarterback right now because you want to make sure the other guys stay engaged. You want it to be competitive. You want to challenge guys. You don't want guys to get comfortable thinking they're the number one guy. So I think most of the talk coming out of Ohio State really is coach talk, because you don't want guys getting comfortable.
I guess that's a good point, right? Because what does Ohio State have to gain from naming a starter right now? I'm pretty sure that they'll have a starter in place when the season kicks off, right, and you lose that edge that you're talking about. You already touched on it. The news story is that Urban Meyer's been saying, look, there's really no separation between these three kids, Tate Martell, the other guy who's in that mix. But you think that there really is somebody in Urban Meyer's mind right now? Is it Haskins' job to lose? That's what a lot of people think.
Well, I think it is Haskins' job to lose. I mean, again, he came in relief of J.T. Barrett in the Michigan game. He played outstanding. He didn't let the moment get the best of him, and he had a great game against Michigan. So I think he is the front runner going in, but he can't rely on the fact that he had a good game against Michigan and let himself believe that he's the guy. He has to feel like this is a true competition. I might be 1 on the depth chart. I might be 2 on the depth chart. I might be 3 on the depth chart. He has to approach it like it's really a quarterback battle, because ultimately it is. But Urban Meyer's not going to make a decision 5 practices in who's the starting quarterback.
Well, let's keep it there for a second then, and let's assume, okay, maybe it is Dwayne Haskins' job to lose. We talked last week, and I get the sentiment that you have on graduate transfers in general, right, that you like the flexibility that gives. What do you do if you're Joe Burrow? Because at some point you have to decide when to pull the trigger, right? Because if he can be a grad transfer, he's got to start looking around at where there's some other jobs, where can you apply to graduate schools. I mean, it's not just so simple as you show up on campus someday somewhere else, right?
Well, yeah, and that's the position that he finds himself in, is because, in my opinion, he probably should have made this decision long before. Because if you're going to stay and challenge for the starting position, you're putting the head coach in a real predicament, because he has to do what's best for the team, and what's best for the team might be not designating who the starting quarterback is until it's absolutely necessary for him to designate who the quarterback is. And that time may pass when it's time for Joe Burrow to make a decision on what school he wants to transfer to, or if he wants to stay. So both of them are in a kind of a real predicament. But I think Joe Burrow, if he's going to commit himself and stay through spring, no matter what happens, who becomes the starting quarterback, I think he just has to ride it out.
Maybe unlike in some years past for Ohio State when they've had one of those marquee opening games, they do get a couple games. I think Oregon State is the first game, and then Rutgers in conference before they play TCU in week 3 of the season. So even if this still stays up in the air to some degree, regardless of whether or not Joe Burrow's involved, rather, there is some flexibility, you'd think, for Ohio State that the rest of their team's going to be talented enough to get them through those first 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and those are going to be the kind of games that you want to have your growing pains for your young quarterback. But Joe Burrow also, and this goes for Tate Martell as well, you're only 1 play away from being the starting quarterback. And there's no guarantee whoever is designated as the starter when they play in that first game, there's no guarantee they're going to have a really good game. So you want to make sure that you just stay engaged, stay committed, because you never know what's going to happen at practice or any game. Your number will be called, and you just need to be ready.